Are you trying to establish your brand as a thought leader? Start a podcast, invite industry experts to be guests on your show, and watch your brand become the prime resource for decision makers in your industry. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show. Welcome back to another Behind the Curtains episode. I am joined today by Logan Lyles. My name is James Carberry. Logan, how are you, man?
I am doing awesome today, James. Thanks, man.
I am really pumped to chat with you today, man, because we are going to be talking about buying intent. And we're going to, if you're not familiar with these behind the curtain episodes, these are weekend episodes that Logan and I do, probably been doing in the last few months, where it's not an interview based episode like what we normally have during the week. It's you and I talking about how we're learning, how we're growing, how we're making our business at Sweetfish better. And when you found the solution that we're going to be talking about today, I was really over the moon. We had been looking for ways to find out, like, how can we find people that are actively searching for not just our solution, not just people that are looking to start podcasts, but how can we find people that are looking for our client solutions, the customers that we have that we're producing their podcast for them? Because there's this magic thing that happens when you ask someone to be a guest on your podcast. Go figure, most of the time they say yes. And if you can get them in the right channel with the right message, people are going to engage with you. But the downside, and just to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit more, what I found with B2B growth is, we can get pretty much any marketer to say yes to being on our podcast, but whether they're in market for what we sell, which is, our podcast service, is a whole different story. So we can stack up, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of relationships. And some of those definitely turn into new business or referral relationships. But you and I have been looking for the last couple of months, really you more than me, to try to figure out, man, is there a tool? Is there some sort of way that we can figure out who is actually looking, who has buying intent for what we do? And if we can reach out to those people and ask them to be a guest on B2B Growth, and they're going to say yes, and then because we know they're looking for what we do, the sales conversation on the back of that interview is likely going to be pretty advantageous for us, because we know they're looking for it. So can you walk us through kind of what were some of the different options that you looked at, and where did you eventually land in finding, a piece of technology that now allows us to see buying intent data?
Yeah. So, I think it was a couple months ago, James, you and I started talking about, this intent data out there, which if anybody has been searching on that, Bombora is one of the names that comes up very frequently if you do any kind of search. But there are numbers of options out there. But basically the idea is that, it's great to know if someone is actively on your site. Obviously, you want to engage with those people because you know that they're either in research or in buying mode or somewhere in your marketing or sales funnel. But what about those people that are searching other places on the web? AdWords and those sorts of tools are becoming harder to become effective at. But there are data providers that are providing basically event triggers and tracking on content events, I believe is the technical term. Basically, people that are downloading and accessing content that relates to your product or service. So whether you sell sales training or podcast production or a SaaS tool, CRM, or whatever the case may be. So I started doing some hunting to see, where can you get access to this data. There are some providers like Bombora that you can go directly to and purchase the raw data. There are other vendors like Everstring that have a tool that allows you to kind of search and find your ideal customers and then narrow that by people that are actively searching. I started looking at a tool that I'd been using for free called Crunchbase. For those of you who aren't aware, Crunchbase is a great tool, even if you're just using the free platform, because it allows you to narrow down and build lists and build alerts according to company types, or things that ways to search on your ideal customer profile and monitor what's going on, like things like them being mentioned in the news, funding alerts. So it's a great tool for something like that. If you're tracking, this list of companies and you want to see when they get another round of investment, so that it might be a good time to talk with them. So it has some features like that, and I'd been using it, and they have some integrations. And I found out that there was this integration between Bombora and Crunchbase, to where we could do what we normally do. We could build lists of people that fit our profile. So, for instance, in our world, we work a lot with SaaS companies, tech companies that are doing enterprise software. And so I put some industry types in there, put some qualifiers in there on employee size, revenue size, and then added on this layer of showing me companies that are what they call surging, meaning actively searching at a higher rate than what's typically seen from IP addresses within that company on a given topic. In our case, we can look specifically for podcasting is a topic that you can see people are searching on. You can search on other things as big as branding and as granular as, Adobe product XYZ.
And so can you see specific people, or is it you're seeing kind of an IP address, so the company?
Yep, that's a great question, and that was the part that had me like thinking like, wait, hold on, this is too good to be true. We're not going to see individuals, and that is the case. You don't see individuals that are searching like you captured a lead on a lead gen form on your site, but you are seeing this company is actively searching. That's not the end of the world, because if you sell podcast service, it's usually someone in marketing, so we know who to target and reach out to. But we know that there's something going on within that account that makes it timing wise better than another time. As you mentioned, we know who to target. We have a great way to start a conversation with them. Now we've got this third aspect of the timing that can make that strategy even much more effective.
All right. So Logan, can you walk our listeners through what have you done since getting the Crunchbase Bombora combination of data? What are the steps that you took to actually operationalize that? We're about to start doing it for clients, but I want listeners to hear how you're doing it, and then maybe share some of the results that you've seen since doing this a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, starting with, kind of the normal customer profile building. So I started building a search, which what's nice about this solution is that you can build multiple searches. So I started kind of with the baseline, starting with employee revenue size, target industries that are pretty applicable for us, and then layered on the intent data filters, looking for people that were at a certain surge score or higher. Basically, the way that the Bombora score works, whether you're using a tool like Crunchbase or Everstring or something else that uses that intent data, they kind of set a baseline. So it tells you basically, let's say you sell to marketing agencies and the topic is Facebook. Well, there's always going to be some search happening on Facebook or a topic like social media. And so there's basically a baseline. And so I forget what the exact number is, but there's a threshold that you can that is considered surging on a topic. So for us, I started with the topic, this intent data topic of podcasting. So it's nice for us that there's a topic specifically for our service. Some of them are very granular, some of them are broader based. So I went from the ICP information to build a set of hundreds and hundreds of potential accounts for us. Then I went to, okay, they're surging on this topic, and put in that topic. And then it lets you put in a surge score. So you can decide, do you really want to look at the people that are showing a lot of interest in this topic right now? And then the other layer that you can do is look at the percentage change. So this is really where you can kind of play with it to see how much does it limit and narrow your results, and which could be a good thing. Obviously it could limit it too much, or it could help you narrow your focus. So this part will be, variable from organization to organization. What I saw, I set the surge score something at like 80, which I think anything above like 50 or 60 is considered surging. So set it pretty high, and then set the percentage change to something pretty high as well, like 20%. So someone that's showing a lot of interest this week over last week. So a spike in interest, not just someone who's consistently showing better than average interest on this topic. So I will say initially, I think I got a little too narrow, because I went from, a list of several hundred down to 15 pretty quickly. And of those 15, there were some other things that I can tell about them once I did some more research, that they might not be a good fit, even though they were showing some interest. So I would definitely say, if you start using this and you start using this Bombora add-on, look at those additional filters on top of just the topic, and kind of play with those a little bit before you save your search to start, getting alerts when new companies get added into your search, because that can definitely vary your results and the expectations.
Can you explain a little bit more, Logan, on where is Bombora pulling this data? Is this based on kind of Google searches or articles that they're reading? How do we know that people are interested in podcasting?
Yeah. So my understanding, and it's been a while since I went through some sales calls on this, saw some demos of some products. So the exact terminology I might be a little off on, but basically the idea is, companies collecting this intent data like Bombora have relationships with companies that have sites where, content can be downloaded from. So what they're doing is tracking these different content events. Someone downloads a white paper, someone puts in their email address to get access to a blog, or whatever the case may be. And then they have all of these, different topics, obviously organized by category, that then show, they're tracking that IP address back to a company, and then aggregating all that data of these content events across these topics and across these companies, and kind of normalizing that data to see where the surge is happening. So it's basically not Google searches, and not, directly like on our website, but third-party sites that have content relevant to these topics. Where are those content events taking place? So, for us, it's allowing us to see people that are interested enough to download content on podcasting, that aren't coming to sweetfishmedia.com and downloading, one of our pieces of content, or going to our blog or something like that. That, most people are sophisticated enough to be tracking that these days. So it allows you to look further out into the internet, if you will, to see what activity is happening, and track that back to key accounts.
Awesome, man. So any parting words? This is, again, I think this is, especially if you're listening to this and you have a podcast, because you've already got kind of this very unique ability to engage with pretty much anyone that you want to engage with, because you have a content asset that positions you to add value up front by asking somebody to be a guest. When you combine it with, now you can ask people to be on your show that are looking for your product or service, whether that be, leadership development, or you sell a particular SaaS tool to finance leaders, whatever the case may be, you can now combine your podcast outreach with this buying intent data. And if all the people you're talking to on your show have a need for what you're doing, you're going to end up doing a lot of business. Is there anything else that you've learned as you've been operationalizing this inside of our business that you think listeners should know?
I can't think of anything, specific on how I'm using it. As we work with it more, I'm sure we're going to have some more tactical tips. But for us, it's just as you're talking about, it's that third piece of the strategy, right? Like we've always used tools like LinkedIn Sales Navigator that is some of the best, targeting from a professional standpoint to find your target decision makers. We're big, on moving from fit to relationship, which we do by inviting people to be guests on a podcast. But adding in that third piece of timing really, I think, is really changes the game and really can take that strategy and accelerate it a lot. So excited to work on this more and continue to use it in our operation and use it for our customers. If anybody listening to this has any questions on can you find this topic or that topic, feel free to email me. I'm happy to log into our version of the tool and check and see if a topic someone's kind of interested in maybe operationalizing this with is available. That was some of my questions in doing some of the demos with Crunchbase. So feel free to email me, Logan@sweetfishmedia.com, or any follow-up questions on kind of how we're using this or tips or anything if you think it could be effective for you, if you have a podcast or other ways that you're looking to engage with people at the right time.
Love it. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for jumping on here. This has been another episode of Behind the Curtain on B2B Growth. If you want to connect with Logan and I on LinkedIn, we are both all over LinkedIn. Would love to connect with you there. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a fantastic weekend. Thanks a lot. There are lots of ways to build a community, and we've chosen to build the B2B Growth community through this podcast. But because of the way podcasts work, it's really hard to engage with our listeners. And without engagement, it's tough to build a great community. So here's what we've decided to do. We're organizing small dinners across the country with our listeners and guests. No sales pitches, no agenda, just great conversations with like-minded people. We'll talk business, we'll talk family, we'll talk goals and dreams. We'll build friendships. So if you'd like to be a part of a B2B Growth dinner in a city near you, go to b2bgrowthdinners.com. That's b2bgrowthdinners.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.